You are recognized to present the nomination of Chris VanDenhende to the State Board of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is, first of all, it gives me great pleasure to be able to stand here and speak of a man that Governor Stitt has nominated. Let's be very clear. If Governor Stitt and Regina Goodwin can agree, there must be something darn good about this man. And I tell you, in the times when we do agree with Governor Stitt, I appreciate his interest in children. I appreciate his moving forward as it relates to how we advance education and educators in the state. And so this particular nominee, it really gives me great pleasure. So to the chair and members of the committee, I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Christopher VanDenhende for confirmation to the Oklahoma State Board of Education. Mr. VanDenhende has broad experience. First of all, before I even talk about his professional accomplishments, I want to talk about the fact that he's a father. And there is no greater educator in the home than a mother and a father, and the fact that he has 3 children, that speaks to his broad experience, not just what we learn in books, but we learn every day, the things that you cannot be taught in a book. He has experienced that as a father in terms of the lessons that he has imparted to his family. He is the Chief Financial Officer of Mint Turbines. So not only does he only maintain aircraft engines and oversee the testing, he also handles the money. He also not only is maintaining, but he had to explain to me what are Mint Turbines, what are turbines, and what do they do in this big world of ours as it relates to aeronautics. So we've had several conversations, and then more importantly, not only his vast and broad knowledge in terms of his professional career. He's worked with American Airlines. He certainly now serves there in Mint Turbines, all that he oversees. It's also very important that he has served as a member for 6 years on the Russo Board, the Regional University System of Oklahoma. So he knows this industry. He knows the importance of education, and education is an industry, by the way. We do understand that because it has to be funded, and then beyond that, we have to have professors that come that are certified, qualified. He is a man that is willing to ask questions. He is willing to say, let's just get down to what's simple. Let's just educate all children. Let's make this as simple as we need to make it and get on with advancing Oklahoma. I appreciate that about him. I appreciate the fact that today we're going to ask for a due pass. I would ask also that with the chair's permission, that Mr. VanDenhende be allowed to approach and have a few words.
Due pass. Due pass from Senator Hicks, a second from Senator Rader. Senator Goodwin, would be happy to let your nominee address the committee. Mr. VanDenhende, thank you for being here, and you are recognized to address the committee.
Thank you, Senator Pugh. Senator Goodwin, thank you very much for that kind introduction. I really don't have prepared remarks because most of the time I speak from my heart, and that's what I'll do now. As she mentioned, I served on the Russo Board. Many may not realize that over 60% of our teachers in this state come out of that system. And so education is not something new to me. Growing up in a family of 2 teachers also gave me some insight into the world of education. When I was brought before this committee for the Russo Board, an amazing thing happened. Senator Matthews, which was Senator Goodwin's predecessor, carried my nomination for that. Just like we were sitting at the table today, Senator Matthews was going over my resume. We had just met a few weeks before, preparing himself to introduce me. And he just stopped, looked at me and said, "Was your mother a teacher?" And I said, "Yes, she was." And he, almost with tears in his eyes, he said, "If it wasn't for your mother, I wouldn't be here today. She gave me the confidence that carried me through life." So I do know something about education. My father was a history teacher. About 7 years ago in church, we had just moved to a different church. A lady came up to me and said, "Was your father a teacher?" Now, with my mother, I readily say yes. With my father, I don't know. Was it a good experience? Because he was a disciplinarian, and if you chewed gum in his class, you wrote a 500-word paper. And she said, yes, it was. And she got tears in her eyes. And she said, when I was in middle school, both of my parents are alcoholics. I was going through horrendous turmoil. And every day your dad gave me the grace to let me know it would be okay. So 4 years ago, the governor asked me to be on the Russo board. And I thought, that really wasn't anything I thought about, but I knew that education was critical, could change people's lives. I just gave you 2 examples of lives that were changed because of education. And so for the last 10 years, maybe a little more, I've been learning about education, looking into the finances of education, and all sorts of things education related. And as my kids grew and got out of the house, as the owner of my company likes to say, in your 30s and 40s, you learn. In your 50s, you earn. And in your 60s, you return. So I'm returning to the state for what the state gave me in the area of education. So I appreciate this opportunity, Senator Pugh. Thank you for allowing me to be here. Senator Goodwin, thank you for carrying me. And Governor Stitt, I appreciate the confidence that you've shown in me.
Members, will there be questions of the nominee? Senator Devers, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, thank you for your willingness to serve the students in our communities. And it is a very high calling, and it is oftentimes a thankless job, but it is an important job. And it's so important that, you spoke about your mother and her impact on so many lives, and I think many of us have similar stories. Probably all of us have similar stories. And because it's such a high calling, and not just teaching, but then being over and serving on a board that would affect so many lives, I do have several questions for you. We have to do our due diligence, and it's no secret. There's been controversy with Governor Stitt's nominations and just some of the situations that have come about in the board. And so I'll ask you a few questions regarding that. Do you personally disagree with Superintendent Walters' approach to education?
I'm not sure that I can answer that because I don't fully understand his approach. So I don't know. We've spent no time in discussion, so other than the board meetings, I know nothing about his approach.
Senator Devers, follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so you haven't had much time to speak with him and then don't know what his approach to education is. Understood. What role do you think the state board plays in regards to Superintendent Walters?
Well, I think the state board is somewhat agnostic to to Superintendent Walters. The role of the board is to oversee the Department of Education and the things that happen there. So To the extent he brings things to the board for review, we review those items, and it's our fiduciary role to use the knowledge and background we have to ask appropriate questions about those things and to make a determination if whatever that is in the best interest of all 4 million residents of the state. So I believe that's the role.
Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you view the state board's role as being one of holding Superintendent Walters accountable?
Well, I think, again, it's not about Superintendent Walters. It's about the Department of Education. And in fact, a board does have a fiduciary responsibility to hold all members of the organization accountable to the laws of the state of Oklahoma. And to that extent, yes, but I mean, he's like any other elected official. He has his role and he can do as he pleases with that role, only to the extent that he brings those things to the board for our review. Do we have any purview or say over that?
Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, have you had an opportunity to read Title 70, Statute 3-104 on the board's power and duties?
I would say that I couldn't tell you that I've read that specific section. I have read information on that, so I'll leave it at that. I can't tell you for sure.
Follow up, Senator Devers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I guess would it surprise you that nowhere in that section of law under the powers and duties nowhere does it mention that the state board has a role or a right to hold the state superintendent accountable?
I think we have a role to vote on things that the Constitution requires the board to vote on.
Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You do have a role to vote. That's true. But earlier you said that you had a duty to hold him accountable. And so that's why I was referencing Title 70 there. Do you think that an unelected and appointed board has the right to hold a statewide elected official accountable?
Without context to that question, I can't respond to it.
Senator Devers, perhaps for more clarity on that question.
Well, just borrowing off of what you said was hold him accountable. So the question then is, I think you mentioned holding him accountable, and then if it's not statutorily part of the powers and duties, then it would seem that you also that the board doesn't have the power to hold him accountable. So would you agree or disagree?
I don't know what to say other than the fact that I'm on the board. If the superintendent brings items to the board for vote, we have a responsibility to understand and vote on those as we see fit. If you consider that holding the superintendent accountable, yes. If you mean, do I hold him accountable for things outside the scope of that? No.
Follow up.
Thank you. Fair enough. Are Are there any initiatives of Superintendent Walters that you support?
He's not shared any initiatives with me.
Okay.
Follow-up, Senator Rivers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would you support his work to remove pornography from school libraries in Norman, Tulsa, and other areas in the state that had pornography before he became superintendent?
I think the answer to that is yes, but with anything, there's a definition of pornography that some may think is and some may think not. But to the broader question, do I believe we need to make sure that schools don't have books or material inappropriate for the students in that school? I agree with that.
Follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay. Would you support like his high dosage tutoring initiatives and his teacher signing bonuses that has brought hundreds of teachers to Oklahoma classrooms?
I'm not familiar with the first item you mentioned, so I can't comment in terms of signing bonuses for teachers in general, because I don't know the specifics of what you're talking about. In general, it's clear that in the 7-state region and nationally, our teachers are undercompensated for the region. That needs to be addressed. Are bonuses the best way to do that? In some cases, that may well be the case. I can't, without a specific, I can't answer that. But certainly in areas of STEM where teachers are in short supply, certainly we should look at all alternatives possible to make sure we have appropriate qualified teachers in those classrooms.
Follow-up, Senator Devers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Regarding the social studies standards, the first question is, would you agree with them? And if you don't, what do you disagree with?
So in general, I have very little issue with the specific content of the standards. There are some things that I think are unnecessary in those standards. The one that comes to mind is the 2020 election. I'm not sure that that's something we necessarily need to put in standards, but it wouldn't be a hill I would die on. My issue with the standards from day one has been, in the meeting where they were laid out, a process was explained to us that they went through. Immediately after that meeting, I started receiving phone calls that wasn't the process. And so I asked what the process was, and I've not received an answer to that. I'm on the record as saying, if I would have known at that meeting what I know now, I would have voted against the standards, because I feel like if a process was followed, which I'm not sure there is a process, which is part of the problem, but if the process wasn't followed, that's a problem. If there is no process, that is a problem. And I don't have enough information to say at this point which of those might be the case, if either. I would think a good explanation would clear all that up, but that's not forthcoming.
Senator Devers, if I may, there might be others in the queue, so let me just check and I'll come back to you. Members, will there be others who have questions? Senator Rader, you recognize for question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chris, for doing this, and your answers are very clear. We appreciate that very, very much. For all in the committee, you probably should know that I've known the nominee for 50 plus years, but still want to make sure that he has an opportunity to address some questions. You've addressed views on the standards and how they came about on that. And looking at the function of a board member, you've been on various boards. Do you see this function much different than other boards you've been on? And do you find it intimidating at all?
To the second part of that, I don't find it intimidating. I find it a bit dysfunctional. Every board that I've been on as a board member, I've had opportunity for input and had discussions with the organization for which I'm on the board. At this point, I've had no conversations with the superintendent, nor have I been introduced or given access to anyone else at the State Department of Education.
Follow-up, Senator Rader.
On a different line of thinking, you've been nominated by the governor, and sometimes there's some types of impressions that we take that may or may not be. How often do you communicate with the governor?
I would say the total times I've interacted with the governor in my life are about 4 or 5. I have not spoken to, communicated in any way with the governor in probably 2 years, maybe a little less than that. When the governor appointed me to the Russo board, I had met him one time when he came to an event at our company and introduced myself and had 5 minutes of conversation. And other than bumping into him at a few events, that's the extent of my relationship with the governor.
Any waves? Will there be additional questions? Senator Peterson for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here today and putting your name forward. Somewhat of a hypothetical question, I guess, but you know, we get characterized as being the 49th state as far as education goes. What do you think is the missing ingredient here that would propel us to move up the ladder?
Well, I think if there were a simple answer to that, either we're not very smart or we just don't want to be better. So I don't think there's a simple answer, but one of the things, I mean, we're 49th, and there are different ratings that have us in different spots. Some include the District of Columbia, so the 49th, I don't know if we're 49 of 50 or 51. Neither's good. But I think what we don't have is we're not having hard conversations. Why are we 49th? You know, some people I've talked to have said the measuring system that places us there is broken. Maybe it is, but it's broken for everyone. I think we just have to start having the hard conversations about why we're 40th and what we need to do to elevate that. Our reading readiness scores are not good. Our math scores are not good. There could be a myriad of reasons for that, but until we start having those conversations in an open discourse where we can agree, disagree, but get them all out on the table. I mean, to some degree, it's almost like a family having a kitchen table conversation. We've got to start having those conversations, because spraying ideas around is not improving the situation.
Follow-up, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would agree. I'm not sure how they get the 49th. I think we're much better than that. The measurement by which we determine that, I think, is not really equal across the board of all the states. But anyway, that you pretty well answered my question, I guess. But further, you have any specific thing you drill down on to make this better?
Well, I think we have to focus on what's going on in our classrooms, and is that consistent across the state? there's just from observation, there's a wide disparity of metro public schools and rural public schools. Nobody wants to talk about consolidation, and I totally understand that, because I was a Will Rogers Roper, and by golly, nobody's going to take my school away. So I appreciate that. But somehow we have to figure out how to give every corner of this state equal opportunity in education. And I think that's a challenge. I think that's a good place to start. But clearly, when you're lowest in your 7-state region for compensation for teachers, and if we forget the fact that teachers are the lifeblood of education, we're missing the point. So, I'm a CFO. The guys where I work call me Dr. No. So I get it. You got a budget, you have so many dollars, but we've got to start getting creative in the way that we compensate teachers and attract teachers to this state.
Will there be additional questions? Senator Rader for a question.
Just a couple of popcorn questions, if I could. Free market capitalist or socialist? How do you describe yourself? I've received a lot of emails calling you a bunch of names.
Yeah, I've seen a few things that I'm a Marxist. I am probably, this would hurt my standing in the education world, but I'm a free market capitalist, and I believe that education is the catapult to that free market.
Follow up, Senator Rader.
Do mint turbines require a fossil fuel or energy source from somewhere else?
So the engines that Mint Turbines works on are legacy engines. Most of them were developed in the 50s and 60s. We're not going to put some, developed product in them. And quite honestly, if you go out and watch Tinker and see the B-52s fly over, I doubt that's on the short list for them either. So there is no pathway for the business I'm in for anything but straight Jet A fuel. And there's some developments out there, but it's a long way away, and I got a lot of gray hair. So not in my time.
Follow up.
Influences on your life. Have you been more influenced by Scripture? Or have you been more influenced by some other type of psychology or sociology?
Boy, Dave, that's a great question. I've spent my entire life in church. Grew up going to the Methodist Church. Was baptized in a swimming pool at East Central University at a football outing, and I would say, without a doubt, that Jesus Christ is the center of my life.
Will there be additional questions? Senator Devers, thank you for your patience. Back to you, Senator Devers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can very much appreciate a lot of those answers. And you brought up free market was brought up, capitalism, and you brought up children having equal access to education across our state. Just wondering your thoughts or your feelings on school choice.
I think this may be an area that Senator Goodwin and I disagreed on. Maybe not disagree, but I say I'm a reluctant school of choice person. And the reason I say reluctant is we didn't have school of choice when I was in school, and our schools were fantastic. So school of choice to me is an admission of failure of the public school system, because it wouldn't be needed if the public school system was filling their role. So to that extent, I am a supporter of charter schools. I am a supporter of St. Isidore's, for example. I wish that it didn't have to be the case, but we are where we are, and we have to get answers to where we need to be. So as I stand here right now, I'm a supporter, and I would support, I support the tax credit, although I think there may be some issues with that we can address. But parents have the right and the duty to find the best education they can for their kids. And so whatever it takes, that's what we need to do.
Follow up, Senator Devers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate Senator Rader for bringing the question about free markets up, and you talked about consolidation as well. Maybe a two-part question on consolidation. Can you expand on your feelings for or against on consolidation? But then some have floated the idea as they looked at the salaries of superintendents, and just wondering on your thoughts or perspective on whether those superintendent salaries are inflated, if consolidation would support more money going into the classrooms and supporting the teachers particularly, and then funneling pipelines for bringing more educators. I know that's a two-part. The first one was for or against consolidation, and then the idea of superintendent salaries, and because those kind of go together.
I appreciate the question. I think there was 4 or 5 in there, but I'll try to answer those. The only reason consolidation makes any sense is if it creates efficiencies in the system. And a lot of those efficiencies would be in administrative functions. As an example, Broken Arrow is the largest school district, sorry, that's incorrect, is the largest high school in the state of Oklahoma, almost double the size of the next largest school. They've resisted breaking out schools similar to what Edmond has done and some of the Oklahoma City areas, because they don't want to give up that efficiency. And so when you look at superintendent salaries, I always get a little leery of talking compensation because everybody's paid too much and I'm never paid enough. And so I realize that this conversation is directly related to individuals who got to where they were with the expectation of what they get. But long term, when you have a school district in Tulsa, Oklahoma City, that's 2 times the size of Cherokee County, let's say. That's probably a wrong example, but and you have 4 or 5 school districts, you have 4 or 5 superintendents, which, by the way, those superintendents don't get paid $300,000 like some of the articles that I've seen. But to the extent you can get efficiencies in the administrative roles to create capital to put into the classrooms, that's why you would want to do it. And we do that as a business all the time. Sometimes well, sometimes not so well.
Will there be additional questions? Seeing no additional questions, will there be debate? Senator Rader, you recognized for debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course, I'm going to debate in favor of my friend. Members, I said earlier, I've known Chris for over 50 years. This is a man of integrity. This is a man who is very smart. In fact, I nominated to Senator Treat at that time for Chris to be the first person that would be responsible for LOFT when we put LOFT together. I think that much of his skills, that he has that type of skill to run a department like we have in LOFT. I think he's that gifted, and I think he's that much of a hard worker. So when I received emails telling me about my friend, and they're telling me things about him that they have no knowledge of the person, have really became upset because this is a good man. This is the kind of person we need on our boards. Chris VanDenhende should be the type of person anybody that leads the board would want to have next to them, whether they agree or not, because you talk about iron on iron, Chris will challenge you, and you're going to be a better leader of that group because of people that take this job so seriously as the way that he is going to take this job. And then for these groups to bring in his family, that's just shameful. His family has nothing to do with this job. He's a good dad. He's a good husband. Every Sunday we listen to the same sermon. I know this man. He is the type of people that we want to serve. And for people to say things they know nothing about him, to influence the members of this committee the way that they're trying to influence them, again, I will say is shameful. This is the type of person we need, and I hope that everybody here votes aye on him because this is exactly the type of person we need. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Will there be additional debate? Senator Devers for debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. VanDenhende, you have given, I think, admirable answers, and you've stood up here in taking these questions like a man, and I appreciate it. And you stood through the due diligence process. You were put into a very difficult position, one that you clearly didn't choose. But you had the opportunity to say no, but you've put yourself forward. And my questions have to do with more so the process and who than I do want to know who you are and your decision making, where it's coming from. But my concern is more about the process and a little less about what's happened. Who you are. So I will be voting no, but I hope you know it's not about you personally as much as I think that there's been a disservice done to our board, and that's kind of where I stand. And I want you to know it's not about you personally. Thank you.
Will there be additional debate? Pro Tem Paxton, you're recognized for debate.
Mr. Chairman, committee, Chris, thank you for coming here today, and to the governor who nominated you, and to Senator Goodwin who's carried your nomination, for you who are accepting it, you have my gratitude. I'm going to tell you, I believe the questions asked here today were legitimate questions and they were policy questions, and I think you did a great job answering those questions. What I'm going to address is kind of what Senator Rader talked about, and it's the issue that becomes more and more prevalent in our society as people who never meet you, never have conversations with you, but feel very empowered behind a keyboard, sitting at their own home or wherever that they're at. Most of those people probably aren't even listening right now. They're probably still asleep because they send most of the emails to us at 2 and 3 in the morning. I appreciate you stepping up and doing this, because without people like you that are willing to take that kind of pressure and still continue to serve, we're in trouble. It is, and Senator Rader pretty well said exactly what I want to say, but I feel it's necessary to echo it, because I'm not addressing anybody in this room. I'm addressing the people who have attacked you online, who have attacked your family online, who have sent us emails without any basis to them about things that have absolutely nothing to do with your ability to be on the state school board. I've heard it said, you've been put in a tough position, this is a controversial board. This shouldn't be a controversial board. It's unfortunate that we got ourselves in the situation where this is a controversial position. As we continue as legislators, we're kind of become used to those attacks. But for the people that get nominated, that are volunteering their time to try to make Oklahoma a better place to live, trying to make it a place that our kids want to come back and live in when they get out of high school or a trade school or a college, we want them to come back here. I don't want to drive to another state to watch my grandkids someday play T-ball. I want to watch that here. And without people like you that are willing to step up and do that and face unfair, hateful opposition, we're like I said, we're in trouble. As legislators, I think we get kind of immune to it. It's so frequent, but when we see it happen the emails I received last night about you, I'm going, what does this have to do with anything? And I know those people have never talked to you. So it's not just the hateful people that are doing that, but those people that are unwittingly and knowingly sharing that information. Shame on those people as well. And some of those people are people I know in my own community that share things. Because I see that, and it's, you're a part of the problem. If you're one of those people that are just sharing these things that you have no basis to know other than you saw it on the internet, you are also part of the problem. I hope we get to a spot we can get past this type of stuff. I appreciate everything you're doing, and sometimes it's shame on us as legislators, and probably in myself and my role as pro tem of the Senate, that I don't speak out enough against this type of activity. And it's affecting our ability to get good people to serve. I know that when we go try to recruit people to run for office, it's why in the world would I want to put myself and my family through that? Good people that would be great members of this Senate or the House of Representatives or some other state office, they won't do it anymore. And so for somebody who's a volunteer to come up and do this, it is a huge deal. And you have my appreciation. You absolutely have my vote today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Senator.
Will there be additional debate? Mr. VanDenhende, I will just make a few remarks. I saw your middle name is K, and I'm trying to figure out how you spell Gorbachev with a K. I just can't figure it out, because that's what my email said. My email said we were literally confirming Mikhail Gorbachev to the State Board of Education. And that's insane. It's insane. I really only have one request of you, and it's a very simple reminder. James Madison said, if men were angels, we would need no government at all. But the fact is, we're not. None of us, elected or appointed. And so it is absolutely the duty of a state board member to ensure that the agency fulfills its mission. Now, how we go about holding elected officials accountable, I fear we've moved ourselves from a republic to a direct democracy, where it is do exactly as I say or else. That's actually everything that the Founding Fathers were against. They were against what they called the local passions of the electorate. They were for a republic, where principled men and women, regardless of their political leanings, went to serve their country, their state, their community, and acted on behalf of all the people they represented. Those maybe that they were the same party affiliation, or those that they were different from. So my request is the same as I've asked every single State Board of Education member who's come before this committee for the 5 years I've chaired this committee. You do not work for me, nor do you work for any member of this committee. You do not work for the governor of Oklahoma, though he certainly has the power to fire you. And we, by the way, have given him that power. You don't work for him. You also, much to the surprise of the people who filled my inbox with nonsense, don't work for the state superintendent of education. You work for 4 million Oklahomans. I have previously been very public about my frustration with boards of education across the state. And when I've spoken at town halls or GOP meetings or small community gatherings, it's been largely in agreement from the crowd that there's no way boards of education, whether they represent small towns and small school districts or large towns and large school districts like mine, could agree on everything. But when you look at boards of education votes across the state, you see 5-0, 7-0 on almost every issue. And I continue to ask board members, you mean to tell me you don't disagree on anything ever? In a town of maybe 100,000 people like my community, there's never a disagreement? And I will extrapolate that to go even further. In a state of 4 million people, 6 board members never disagree about anything? And prior to these 3 board members, that's actually what every single vote of the previous iteration of the State Board of Education, they agreed on everything. No way. They weren't doing their job then. So I am just simply reminding you, as I will remind the other 3 board members that we will hear before this committee in the next few weeks, that your job is to represent 4 million Oklahomans to the best of your ability. And by the way, if the governor thinks you're no longer able to carry that out, he has the authority that this body invested in him to change those nominees. But that should not deter you from doing what you think is right. Because we as elected officials all have the ability to be fired as well by our constituents. That's exactly what a republic stands for, ladies and gentlemen. That we get to be fired every 4 years in the Senate or every 2 years in the House if we are not representing the best interests of our community. That doesn't mean a tyranny of the majority or a tyranny of the minority. And so I am very frustrated with a process where rather than having great policy discussions like my colleague from Elgin, we go after people's character and we attack them and we call them names. Or worse yet, we dox them, we post their addresses online, which has happened to agency directors. We go after their kids. And who the heck wants a job that they don't get paid for? When that's what comes with it? Are you kidding me? We can have tremendous disagreements, and we should. And those disagreements actually should play out in public, and a thoughtful, intelligent discussion of differences of ideas. But we should be able to show each other empathy and understand each other's points of views. And it's incredibly frustrating as we try to model, especially the education committee, to over 700,000 young people in our school systems, how adults can disagree agreeably. And so I don't care how you vote on this nomination. I don't. But I do care how we treat our nominees. I will be supporting Mr. VanDenhende. Senator Goodwin, care to close?
Thank you for those comments. Very timely, very needed. I just wanted to say that as Mr. VanDenhende stood here in a very respectful manner and answered questions that absolutely, that's why we're here in a free republic. Ask what you will. What I will say is that he handled himself in a manner that very few oftentimes we don't see that. We saw somebody stand here and answer questions in a transparent manner. He answered the questions with integrity and intelligence, and I promise you, very rarely do we get that in this building because we know how to deflect, we know how to move over to a different topic, but here's a man that stood here and answered every question that was asked, and he had the intelligence and the integrity to say if he was not sure about something. That tells you, that speaks to his character and his moral compass when he said perhaps we need to review or have further study on an issue. So I would say that the point of someone being fired, again, let's remember, this is service. He is volunteering, and he has withstood the slings and arrows, and he has stood here in great fashion, and he has been a straight shooter. He has given you answers. He still wants to be on this board. So I am thankful that he wants to do the work. He is capable of doing the work, and I do care how you vote. I am asking that all of you vote yes, because he has cut through all of the nonsense. And the bottom line is he cares about the education of our children in Oklahoma. And if we focus on that and we focus on who he is, we'll all get along further and faster. Again, I ask for yes votes. Thank you, Mr. VanDenhende, for being here.
That concludes debate. Clerk will call the roll.
Senator Devers, Senator Dossett, Senator Hicks, Senator Mann, Senator Peterson, Senator Rader, Senator Sacchieri, Senator Daniels, Senator Paxton, Senator Seifrid, Senator Pugh.
Aye.
9 ayes, 2 nays.
Having received 9 ayes and 2 nays, I declare the nomination of Christopher VanDenhende to the State Board of Education to have passed.